Hey everyone, it's Josh from Bogren Digital, and I'm here to show you our new full amp suite, the MLC S093. The S093 is the signature amp of Silenos from Bogren, and we've recreated that real amp made by MLC in plugin form. Now, Bogren are a symphonic black metal band from Norway. This amp was specifically designed with extreme metal genres in mind, so that's going to give you a little bit of an idea of the sounds we're going to get from this plugin. Let's MLC what's going on. So here we are in the S093 plugin, and this is how it will load up for you when you first install it with the default preset. And so the main event, obviously, the MLC S093 amp itself. Now this amp was designed by MLC in direct collaboration with Silenos, and the plugin version is an exact copy of that amplifier in digital form, except for the fact that we've got a clean mode on this amp. And so with Silenos, we designed this clean channel to make sure that we covered all of the sounds that he would want from an amp suite. As well as this main amp page, we have a pre-effects page, a cabinet page, an EQ page, and a post-effects page. On the pre-effects page, we have 3 pedals. On the left, we have a Fascination Street Octave pedal. This is a new pedal that we've developed specifically for this amp suite with Silenos. And what we've got are 2 different octaves and a direct signal, the dry signal. And both these octaves are going down rather than up. So what we get for octave 1 is 1 octave down, and octave 2 is 2 octaves down. So you really get into that super thick, gnarly sound, which is perfect for extreme genres. In the middle, we've got the MLC Brown Sugar. This is a real pedal made by MLC, and so in plugin form, it behaves exactly the same as the real life counterpart. We've got a level tone distortion, so standard controls up there, but this mode control actually changes the type of clipping that we have from the circuit. Inside the real pedal, there are 4 different clipping circuits. We've got a Schottky, Impulse, Germanium, and LED circuits. And in the plugin version, we've modeled each of those so you can select them with this mode switch, just like the real pedal. And we'll hear more from those later. On the right, we've got the Fascination Street OVD2, which builds upon the OVD1, but is tailored and modified specifically for this amp suite. And this offers the typical green style overdrive that you put in front of your amp to tighten everything up and make it, that little bit more cutting and aggressive. In the cabinet section, we have 2 different cabs, a modern and a vintage cab. And for each of these, we have 5 different microphone options. And you'll find in the 93 that we've got a couple of new options for the microphones. We have a dynamic 201, and we have a ribbon 160. As well as those mic options, we have full XY positioning for each microphone and a continuous angle control for each side as well. And it wouldn't be a Bogren Digital amp sim without our unique IRDX technology. Now, I'm sure you've heard about IRDX before, but if you haven't, it helps to bring real-life speaker movement to static IRs. On the EQ page, you have our standard 10-band graphical EQ, which has plus or minus 12 dB for each band. And on the post-effects page, we have a Fascination Street delay on the left, which is modeled after an analog delay pedal, which is a staple in Jens Bogren's productions. And on the right, we have a Fascination Street reverb pedal. Across the top, we have a few convenience-based features, including an A-B switcher so that you can easily A-B 2 completely different sounds. The preset menu in the middle, with these arrows to flick through presets nice and quickly. We have an undo and a redo control here, which are incredibly useful if you accidentally make your sound worse or want to make it better again because you made it worse by undoing. And then on the far right hand side, we have the preferences and other bits and pieces. So that's what's included. We'll grab a guitar and we'll see how it sounds. So let's start with the default preset. Here's what it sounds like. If we turn the brown sugar off, we can have a look and listen to each of the 3 channels individually just by themselves. Starting with the clean channel. Channel 2. And finally, channel 3. So there you have all the channels, and I think you'll agree that there's quite a breadth of sounds there available. So for channel 1, you've got a nice vibey, clean sound. For channel 2, you're already verging into high gain territory, but with a little bit more of a rounded character, and it still cleans up very nicely with lower levels of the gain control. And mode 3 steps up a notch into that high gain, super cutting, aggressive sound that's perfect for extreme metal genres. So one thing to note about the modes or the channels is that the front panel controls are saved per slot. So as you can see, when I switch these channels here or modes, we're seeing all of those knobs flick back to their saved positions. And another thing you might have noticed on the amp's front panel are the 6L6 or KT88 options for the power tubes or power valves. And like in real life, the difference between these 2 sets of valves is subtle, but there's definitely a character shift between the 2. So now we're in the cab section. I just wanted to click through a few of the microphone options to let you hear the differences between those. So there's quite a lot of options there just in the microphone choice, but you've also got obviously the blend between the 2 speakers. You've got XY position for both microphones and continuous off-axis angle control, which is really nice to have. And just a quick tip on that, you can adjust the angle just by scrolling on the microphone image, or indeed holding shift and dragging on either the microphone or on the microphone diagram. And of course, on top of all of that, you can come into the microphone selection and load your own external IR. When you load an external IR, it's important to note that IRDX technology is still applied to that IR. So you're still going to get the benefits of that real life speaker movement that's going to help bring those static IRs to life. And a final quick tip on the cab section, which also applies to any page that isn't the amp page, is that up here where the amp is still showing in the UI, you can still interact with all of these controls as you would do on the amp page. So if you're here adjusting settings in the cab window, you can still go in and tweak all of the controls on the front panel of the amp. So there's some other cool stuff worth talking about. And one of those things is the Fascination Street Octave, which is brand new for the S093. So as I mentioned earlier, this octave pedal has 2 octaves that both go down. So we've got octave 1 that's 12 semitones or 1 octave down, and octave 2 is 24 semitones down or 2 octaves below your root. And of course, you've got the direct level, which is your dry signal level versus those 2 octaves. And what's really cool about the octave pedal in particular is the intelligent pitch detection that it has. What that means is that it's not going to get confused when you play a chord. Instead of flitting between all of the different notes in the chord, it's going to intelligently select the lowest note in the chord and apply an octave from that note. That's enough of me talking about it though. Let's hear what it sounds like. So the other cool thing I mentioned earlier was this mode switch on the MLC brown sugar. And as I've said before, this is different clipping modes based on different clipping circuits in the real pedal. And, you know, basically this gives you 4 different overdrives in one pedal. Let me show you what the different modes sound like. If 4 clipping modes isn't enough for you, you've got a 5th over here in the OVD2. And what's nice about these 2 pedals is that they work really well together when stacked. So let's have a listen to that. Here's the brown sugar by itself. Our journey definitely wouldn't be complete without talking about a bit of reverb. And this new reverb pedal has some really nice features with these low cut and high cut controls. So with the low cut control, what you get is if it's all the way to the left like this, it's going to basically have the low cut as low as possible, so cutting as little as possible of the reverb. Oh, and by the way, the low cut and high cut are only affecting the wet portion of the reverb. They don't affect the dry signal. And as you bring up the low cut control, you can see the frequency is rising. So the low cut is cutting more and more into the body of the wet part of the reverb. And this control goes all the way up to 500 Hertz. So that's a significant amount of the low end taken out of the wet portion of the reverb. And it's similar with the high cut, but in reverse. So when this control is all the way to the right-hand side, you're at 20 kilohertz. So barely affecting the signal if at all. And then as you bring it down, you're cutting more and more of the top end of the reverb off. And these controls are great, for example, when you have a muddiness in your reverb that you want to cut out that's getting in the way of your guitars, or perhaps you have a bit of a bright, shimmery reverb that you want to tame. Here's the reverb completely wide open. Here's with the low cut all the way up. And here's with the high cut all the way down. With them both at their maximum settings. So with the combination of these 2 pedals, you can get some really nice ambient effects and some really spaced out vibes. you've been watching this video and thinking, I wouldn't know where to start, that's where the tons of built-in presets will come in handy for you. If we click up here at the top, we get access to all of the presets. And this artists folder contains presets from huge metal icons such as Dimmu Borgir, Behemoth, Emperor, Mayhem, and many more. It's a great way to get started with a killer tone in no time at all. There are a few other little tips and tricks that you might want to know when using this plugin, starting with this little switch down here in the bottom right corner. We've got normal quality and we've got ultra quality. Now, the difference between these is actually to do with the neural networks. So when you're on normal quality, you have smaller neural networks, and when you're on ultra quality, you have much larger neural networks. Obviously, these use up more CPU. So if you're struggling with any artifacts that come from your CPU being pretty much maxed out whilst you're running maybe a session with multiple instances of this plugin and some other ones, then you might want to switch this over to normal quality because that will ease up on your CPU usage and allow things to run a bit more smoothly. If you do have to set to normal quality, don't worry. There's no significant difference in the sound. It's perfectly fine for tracking. And when you bounce the audio, it will automatically get set offline to ultra quality. Another cool little feature is hiding up here next to the output level. And it's this knob here, the pan control. And this can be really useful when you want to specifically position your guitar in this stereo field, but maintain those stereo effects to help blend into the other instruments in the mix. And this is pretty cool that you can do it entirely within the plugin. Another little detail that you might have noticed are these indicators that appear when a pedal is activated or deactivated on the pre-effects and post-effects page. So you can have a quick reference for which pedals are on each page without having to navigate to those pages. For instance, you can tell now that the brown sugar is on because of this little brown circle above the pedal icon. In certain situations where you're only using a small number of effects, you might want to turn off some of these sections to make sure that they're not affecting your signal. You can do this in a couple of ways. The easiest way is to Alt-click or Option-click on the icons. And the other way is to simply double-click on the icon. As you've probably noticed, there are tooltips that appear when I hover over each of these controls at the bottom of the UI. These tooltips can be translated into a number of different languages. Simply head over to the menu in the top right, select Preferences, and choose your language from the drop-down box. As well as the tuner, which is available in all of the formats of the plugin, when you load up the standalone version, you get a couple of extra convenient features, as with all Bogren digital amp sims. Next to the tuner, you have the metronome, and clicking on that opens the metronome window. This is a pretty in-depth metronome, offering you a few different sounds, different accents on different beats, different numbers of beats within that, different note divisions for the metronome. And also a really cool feature is this little icon here. If you click on that, you can turn on this little process, which is going to increase the speed by X BPM every X bars. And this can be really useful when you're trying to increase and progress your speed for a certain passage or lick. And you can do that by setting it to automatically increase the speed for the metronome. Next to the metronome, you have the riff recorder. And this is just going to literally record the output of the plugin and save it if you want to on your computer. This is really handy for just capturing those quick moments of inspiration without having to load up your DAW. And if you want to find where those riffs are being recorded, there's a handy little folder icon next to the riff recorder icon, which if you click it will take you to where those riffs are being recorded. So to finish off, let me play you some of the cool sounds you can get from this plugin. So that's our new plugin, the MLC S093. We think it's pretty epic, but don't take our word for it. Grab a free trial at bogrendigital.com and check it out for yourself.